All right. Welcome to news from Baja, Arizona. I'm Michael Bryan,
And I'm Andrew Nebelham-Sheasley.
We're here today with a couple of guests to talk about the CD7 special election that just got in the can recently. Why don't you fellows introduce yourself? Andrew?
I'm Andrew Bott. I've spent the last 5 years in England, but owned a house here in Arizona for the last 8 years, and been pretty active since I've been here.
And Larry?
My name's Larry Bodine. I'm the former chair of Legislative District 18. I'm a former president of Democrats of Greater Tucson, been on the board for 5 years. Also a writer for the blog for Arizona, and I just like helping Democrats and getting them put into office.
Yeah, that's how me and Larry know each other. I'm Mike Bryan. I'm the publisher and chief editor of Blog for Arizona and the program director for Democrats of Greater Tucson. What we're going to talk about today is CD7. Let's start by talking about the victor, Adelita Grijalva, the woman of the day. Andrew,
I mean, pretty decisive, I have to say, for an election where everyone was talking about Deja Fox and how she was within 1 point. I think clearly pollsters still have a long way to go because it definitely wasn't a 1 point victory.
Yeah, no, that was an internal poll, and the campaign would not share that with me. Okay, so a little bit skeptical of that right from the very beginning. I wrote in the blog for Arizona that obviously this was going to be a victory by Adelita Grijalva. Well, there was no doubt in my mind. Some of the others thought, might be a little bit closer, but I was thinking that Deja Fox would get between 10 and 15%, and she actually exceeded my expectations. So she did really well, and any professionals who are looking at this race and forecasting it based on any public policy, any public polling that was available, which was very little, would see that she was running about 5% in May. Deja Fox, that is. And she beat the heck out of that. So she quadrupled her support. And that, for a really short run for a brand new candidate who's just introduced.
I mean, it was a 100-day run, right? I mean, a 100-day election.
It was a sprint.
Yeah.
But, she did really, really well. So she really exceeded expectations.
And also, I think she represents the youth movement that's taken place, as illustrated by Zoran Mamdani in New York City. Granted, Tucson is not New York City, but for the first time out, she got 20% of the vote. She made a mark, and she's representing 50% of the voters in this country, and those are people in Gen Z and millennials.
And
go ahead, please.
Let's hear from an actual Gen Zer on this.
Yes, and let's be aware here that this wasn't progressive versus moderate. This was progressive v. progressive. We have to give credit to Grijalva for being the progressive candidate that she is. She got endorsed by Bernie Sanders, AOC. So it's really hard to make that type of comparison to somebody like Mamdani, who faced the worst Democrat I can imagine, Cuomo. Well, I guess Eric Adams also falls in that. But this was a very progressive versus progressive race. So it was a very tough decision for the Gen Z voters in this area to pick one.
So I guess that makes Dan Hernandez the Cuomo in this race.
Absolutely.
It's got to be very embarrassing right now to be Dan Hernandez, to be beaten by more than 5 points by a first timer when he's run for Congress before. He's held office in this area before. It's got to be deeply embarrassing. And the fact that Kelly and Giffords kind of repudiated him in this race and criticized him for kind of using their connection during the assassination attempt, kind of overusing that connection. That's got to be deeply embarrassing for them.
So do you think that Deja Fox won, considering where she came from and her experience? Because I'm sure she doesn't feel like she won,
Well, if
do you
anybody
think this is a win for her?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if anybody expected her to actually win the race, that's some naivete. I mean, she was operating on a really, really kind of out there electoral theory, is that, Gen Z would get really, really activated about one of their own and get out there and vote in inordinate numbers that we've
Were they
never
not
seen
activated?
before.
Did they not vote?
No, they did not.
Okay.
There was really no difference between this race and any other in terms of Gen Z activation.
Wow.
However, that illustrates the need for the Democratic Party to adapt to 50% of the voters, the people in Gen Z and millennials, because right now they're feeling alienated by the Democratic Party. They're feeling like they're just being called in to fetch coffee and go out in the sun and with a clipboard. And the Democratic Party needs to find a way to involve younger people and give them a role. You can't just bring them in and then give them nothing to do. Give them a role. Find someone who's a little older to mentor them, but to stay in the background and to give the young person credit. And that, I think, is the most important way that Democrats can win in 2026 is by engaging younger people to become active in the party.
I think both ways, maybe.
I will also add that in my opinion, the Gen Z and millennials, they really value effectiveness. And I think they want something immediate. I'm trying to think of how to put this, but get back to me on this. Let me think. Let me think for a moment.
Well, when you look at Deja's message, just a lot of it was her personal story and her personal biography. She's introducing herself to voters, and that's understandable in a first-time candidate. But I feel that in order to activate Gen Z voters, and tell me if I'm on the wrong track here, but they also want to know what you're going to do for them. Yeah. They want to hear policies and ideas that will actually improve their lives. And apparently, just being one of them isn't enough. Maybe.
So I did hear a lot of feedback. Being a TikTok creator on the platform and part of the creator program, I do spend an inordinate amount of time on TikTok. And I did hear a lot of feedback about Deja's campaign, where they were saying, she's sane, she's kind of talking like Mamdani, she's getting out there and putting herself out there, and she's really relatable. But unlike Mamdani, we're having to beg her for her policy positions. We're having to push her to put it on the website. And I think her team did respond to it, to be fair, and finally, eventually, get her policies laid out on the website. But she wasn't talking about those policies in a significant amount of the time. And I'm not exaggerating, they had to push her to get the policies even on her website. So Mamdani didn't lead with that, right? He led with the policy, and his personality and his experience and his youngness was the authenticity behind those policies. But I think if we're looking at some of the improvements that can be made for Deja's next campaign, it might be to lead with those policies rather than just leading with the personality and the
key
experience.
Issues are, once again, economic.
Yeah.
People, younger people want to know if they can buy a car so they can drive to a job. They're facing situations where employers are saying, we don't have any opening positions for people with no experience because we have AI to do that. They're looking to, they're holding off having a nice wedding. They're holding off getting an apartment. They want to move out of mom's basement and have their own place. And they should be entitled to what my generation had, which was, if you saved up enough money for a down payment, you could buy a house. That's impossible for people in the millennial and Gen Z generations.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's true. I'd be really interested to see what Deja has to say about some of the state issues that we're facing here in Arizona. I think it would be really interesting to see her run for state legislature. That might be a better place to build a base and to build your recognition and build your political brand.
I think she's been amazing. I don't want to rag on what she's done because I think it's incredible what she was able to do, and it takes a lot of guts to put yourself out there as a new candidate. But I do think having the center of your campaign be the actions you're going to take, not just the experience and where you come from. I think it's great to talk about where you come from, but then it should inform the specific policies, the specific actions that you're going to take. Sorry to interrupt you, Andrew.
I think she shouldn't have even ran for House of Representatives, to be honest, because to me, that specific body is the most ineffective body one can be in.
There's a little doubt about that. That's true.
Specifically, partly doing parts to the Senate filibuster. Any idea that a representative that isn't budget related, it could just die to the Senate filibuster. But here in like a state legislature or the Board of Supervisors, that's where the passionate Gen Z type candidates can really flourish, where they can talk about their biography. They do need to talk about the issues. You're absolutely right on that. Issues first matter, and connecting it to the bigger issues that everybody's talking about as well, climate change, affordability crisis, et cetera, but with specifics, that's what would make great Gen Z candidates for these local offices.
Yeah, that's a really good point, Andrew, that maybe she would have a better chance of actually getting some policy wins under her belt and building up her credibility as a Democrat here in Arizona in the state legislature. We do, in fact, have 3 statewide candidates who are holding office now. We have the governorship, we have the Secretary of State, we have the Attorney General. What we need is the legislature, and somebody like Deja could really activate swing voters in a gettable district for us. Like down here in southern Arizona, we have 23, we have 21, we have 17,
we're trying to flip
we
some
have
seats
16.
for sure.
We're definitely possibly flipping seats.
I think it's
here.
the same issue though, because it's the problem. I mean, I think the policies are great, but it's also what actions are you going to take? How are you going to get these things done? What are you going to do if you're stonewalled? Those are the kind of things that really frustrate me from current elected people who are already elected, where it's like they're talking my language, that we agree on the problems, but I don't agree that they should just sit after they get elected and say, well, we don't have the majority, so I can't do anything. This is really sad that this is happening. Like, guys, that's not leadership. You know, that's not what I want to see from my elected representatives.
If a young person really wants to have an impact here in Arizona, especially on policy, one of the best things they can do is run for state office.
And then take actions.
And take action, yeah. I mean, if we can flip the state legislature, Democrats can do some amazing things here to make life better for people here in southern Arizona, especially for young people. I mean, what you see here in Arizona is we have the 49th lowest rate of funding education in the United States. Wow. We consistently trade places with like Alabama. For 50th. So terrible. It's terrible.
That's rough.
We have defunded our public schools, and that's not going to doesn't do a damn thing for young people. But even college age used to be that you could go to in-state tuition here at a state college for a really reasonable price. I mean, when I went, you know, it was like maybe $1,000, $2,000 a semester. It was
try $50,000 for 2 years.
It was really reasonable. Now I think in-state tuition is like $13,999 per semester.
Something like that. Yeah, I think I walked away with $50K.
Yeah, the state legislature has gutted, almost completely eliminated any funding for higher education in this state, and so, you know, that's the kind of thing that a young person running for office and wanting to make a change to public policy could really make a big difference in, especially if they could flip some of those flippable seats at the state.
And the important thing is the Democratic Party has to refresh its approach to getting out the vote. The ADLCC is dedicated to flipping the legislature in favor of Democratic candidates. It's been in existence since 2015 and has never succeeded at its mission. And that is because it's wedded to this policy of it's called the single shot approach, where there are 2 seats, you know, for representative in each district, and what they'll do is they'll run one candidate on some theory that I totally don't understand.
Well, it could be that you don't understand it because it does work sometimes.
Yeah,
but I understand your frustration. Kevin Volk, exactly, in this cycle was a very good example of that.
Interesting.
He ran as a single shot in LD17, and we picked up that seat. It didn't work in the Senate, but it did work in LD17 in the House.
But doesn't it make sense to run 2 candidates, because now you're involved in 2
Oftentimes
circles of interest,
Oftentimes
2 bases of donors?
But I don't think it's so much a flaw in their approach or their strategy. I think the flaw is just timing, because for instance, during presidential years, we generally do better, and Democrats generally do better. But this year, we didn't do better. We did considerably worse than we normally do in a presidential year.
Because we pursued a single-shot candidate
I don't think that has much to do with it. I think it's just that, you know,
either.
that Democrats were dispirited across the board. If we had a primary contest for president, if we had those primaries to get Democrats excited about a new direction for presidential politics, you know, and we hadn't had a coronation essentially of the vice president as our presidential candidate,
Well, there's
maybe we
reasons
would have had
that
a little
happened
bit.
for sure.
Yeah, certainly. But the point being that this was not a great year for ADLCC to be able to flip the legislature, and it just was. It was an off year.
I feel like Andrew has something to jump
Entirely.
in here. What were you gonna say?
Yeah, I do want to return though to the topic of CD7 and
Yeah.
the Delta, because you mentioned how you don't like candidates getting elected and then just being like, oh, we're the minority and just sits. This is now a Delta's position. Am I pronouncing
Deja.
it? Deja?
Deja.
No, the winners.
Oh,
Adelita.
Adelita. Okay, so I was pronouncing it wrong. Adelita. She needs to take example from where you used to live, England, and learn from the oppositions and how they act when they're in the opposition party. They need to maximize political theater. And I want to be clear here that political theater is, at the end of the day, political theater. It's not always going to work. It's not going to result in any meaningful change. It's not going to suddenly, upset the entire balance of power. But it will show that the Democrats are fighting tooth and nail. And sometimes just enough political theater will end up pushing and will work and get some sort of win. And the Democrats aren't engaging in real meaningful political theater. Like, we don't care if you rename the budget bill, Chuck Schumer. That's not a political win.
Yeah, I think you make a very good point there. But I think one of the things also that annoys me a little bit about the way Adelita's victory has been framed, especially as regards Deja, is that here in Southern Arizona, we had another victory by the establishment candidate. That really bugs the hell out of me, especially with regards to the Grijalvas in general.
She
and
was the
Adelita
establishment
specifically.
Yeah,
But here's the thing.
Let's just be fair.
Here's the thing. When you say establishment in Democratic circles, what that normally means is a centrist Democrat who takes a lot of corporate money, who shills for corporate interests, who's for sale to the highest bidder, who goes along to get along. That is not the Grijalva way. Here in Southern Arizona, the Grijalvas have built a name and a machine based on organizing people in the district who live and work in the district. They are community organizers, and that's why they have such a solid operation here in Southern Arizona. Not because they're the establishment and they've sold out and they can raise all the money to be able to swamp their opponents. It's because they can put boots on the ground. They can put butts in seats because they have organized the community.
Is that why you think she won?
That's why she won. Absolutely, that's why she won. And so when people say that the establishment won, I think that it's a little bit of a misnomer. Adelita and her father have organized Democratic politics the way we want Democrats to organize machine politics. We want them to organize in the district. We want them to organize regular working class, middle class people who live in the district to build political power in themselves organically. And I think when you call Adelita an establishment candidate, it's really a smear of her and her father's legacy. Raul was a progressive. He was one of the most progressive Democrats in Congress. And to call him establishment, I think, is just a denigration of his legacy.
I think it's missing the bigger issue when you call her establishment as well, because the whole name thing, yeah, that is somewhat of an issue. Ideally, we would want, after one representative stops running, that somebody entirely new takes on. But that's a bigger failing in the Democratic Party as a whole for not engaging with not just Gen Zs, but even Gen Xs to get them to different levels and have the type of, I don't know what you would call it exactly, but a career path to get somebody from being just anybody to being able to run with these same successful strategies. Like, it shouldn't have been, oh, Grijalva died, who's the best person? Oh, it would be his daughter. There should have been plenty of people within that district that could have been picked.
Well, there were plenty of people who could have been picked, but that's just the thing, is that the Grijalva name and the Grijalva organization that he built across a lifetime of organizing and work was so strong that everybody knew that whoever was in position to be able to best motivate that political network was going to win that race.
But it doesn't
and
change.
a lot of people stepped aside. there were plenty of people who
Yeah.
could have run. One, Mayor Romero for one.
I think that doesn't change
But
how it
she
feels, though.
specifically stepped out of the race for Adelita. And that's because she believed in Adelita.
But it doesn't change how it feels
No.
to have the daughter of the person who passed away be the one that steps up. The
that's
way
true.
it feels, I think,
nepotism.
is nepotism. Even if she is a great candidate that has roots in the community, that's done so much, that is a servant leader, those are all great things, and they all exist. But it also feels like, well, gosh, when are we gonna get in there?
Yeah.
Well, gosh, when are the rest of us gonna have a chance? And I think that's what Deja was speaking to, and I think the people who were following her, that is how they felt. Like, hey, it's time for something new. Let's try to get something done. And I'm more curious. I think it's a little more obvious why Adelita Grijalva won than it is obvious to me why Deja Fox lost. After having raised $1 million, huge media following, lots of volunteers knocking on doors, I'm more curious why Deja Fox lost than why Adelita Grijalva won. Because I think it's kind of straightforward how she won. She got the endorsements. She had the political machine behind her. She had the organization and the organized folks. I'm curious why Deja Fox lost.
I think it's going back to what I stumbled on earlier. It's just that the position she was running for is an ineffective position, and Gen Z and millennials can tell that. Faith in Congress is at an all-time low, I would imagine. I mean, somebody fact check me on that if necessary, but
No, it's like,
No,
there's
you're
E. coli and rats and plague, and then there's Congress, right? About the same level of popularity.
So
yeah.
it's just like she didn't mention her issues, as you pointed out earlier, and everybody knows that Congress is Republican controlled, and even if Deja would have won, there's still the inter-party Dem congressional and Senate stuff that goes on behind the scene that even we don't know about, that would probably bring people to be like, why bother even voting in this? Especially, again, when it was progressive versus progressive. Grijalva is a great one.
I could take a stab at answering Andrew's question. And I think people look at somebody like Deja Fox and they see AOC. And they relate that to the AOC election, that she beat a long-term incumbent who was like establishment to the hilt by out-organizing, being more media savvy and being more internet friendly than somebody who, quite frankly, most people didn't know the guy's name. Certainly not. He didn't have a national following like AOC now has. And they look at that and they compare that to Deja, but the Grijalva organization is not what AOC was facing in her district.
That's true.
That was an actual establishment Democrat.
Right.
Who really didn't have a lot going on in his district, who didn't have a lot of organization, who didn't have a lot of
Who
people,
was kind of phoning it in
who
at that
really
point.
was kind of phoning it in and
Right.
relying on ads and being able to outspend everybody. So it was a much different election. And,
Right,
and I think Deja and media influencers who might want to look at a congressional run have to look at that and see, is this really somebody who I can knock off with a superior air game on the internet?
Yeah.
And the answer in this case was no, absolutely not. So I think that's why Deja didn't win.
And again, going back to like what we were saying with nepotism, that organization, that Grijalva organization, it shouldn't belong to the family. It should have belonged to effectively the Democratic Party.
Well, it doesn't. It doesn't. There are plenty of people who get elected using the Grijalva organization whose last name is not Grijalva. The most recent example, maybe Andres Cano, who got appointed, and he will be reelected to the Pima County Board of Supervisors, or Mero Mero. She's a Grijalvaista. The Grijalva family has given Hispanics here in southern Arizona a centerpiece of organizing to work from. And yes, in this case, it happened to be a Grijalva who earned that spot. But I don't think it's nepotism in the way that you guys are like saying nepotism, like it's a bad thing, like it's like an actor whose kid gets a role
and the folks
that they don't really deserve because they have the last name. This is somebody who has worked for 20 years in the trenches. You know, she has worked with her father's campaign and her father's organization for her entire adult life. She's earned the support of the Grijalva organization.
I mean, I sure would love to have a parent that was in Congress and I had that experience.
Yeah.
Did you see what I'm saying? So that's what I mean when I say that. I'm not saying she didn't earn it. What I am saying is there are lots of other people that would have loved that same opportunity.
Yeah, but I think there's a certain
To know that organization and to have a
there's a
parent
certain
in Congress.
classism. I think when you say nepotism, it conjures that kind of like that Hollywood nepotism. This is not that. This is an intergenerational wealth transfer, if you will. Between,
That's a better example.
Between immigrants, because really, that's what the Grijalva family was. It was immigrants. They started out with very little, and they have built an organization by empowering people here in Southern Arizona in their community. And so I don't think that that Adelita is like a nepo baby by any means.
But I'll tell you, the one
I
thing
think it's classist to think so.
that holds my interest is, what is Deja Fox going to be doing next? I mean, she should run for some sort of a state level or municipal level office. I mean, frankly, coming out of the box and running for U.S. Congress the first time you run for election is really reaching pretty high.
Yeah, it's audacious.
But
But it got her national news, national
right,
recognition.
national news. She's extremely well known. She has an opportunity now to make the most of that and make a significant difference here in Tucson.
It'll be
so I
interesting
want
to
to
see
see
what
what
she
she's
does.
going to do next.
Yeah, I mean, my least favorite thing is when we have our great candidates and they don't win and they just vanish. They're just gone.
Yeah.
And I hear the arguments because I hear them from other Democrats, and they're like, "Well, you didn't vote for them, so they should go relax now. They didn't win." And I just don't agree with that. Republicans, when they lose, they don't go disappear.
Yeah.
They start a podcast. They build these networks. They are upset. They make up lies. I'm not saying we need to make up lies. What I am saying is you need to stay involved in your community. You just built a great organization of people who are passionate about you. Do not just disappear. So I don't mind what she does as long as she doesn't vanish until before the next election. Because if she just vanishes and then another election comes and she appears again, that upsets me because I'm like, you just harness something that people care about. I don't know how many folks were involved in her campaign, but I think you're speaking to something that's affected some people, that's affected people on a national level.
Yeah.
So do not just disappear. We want you involved. We need involved folks in our politics, whether they're young or old. We just need involved people. That's my
now
opinion.
I think it's incumbent on the Democratic Party to find a role for her. A role on a legislative district. A role on on one of the local clubs like Democrats of Greater Tucson.
Yeah.
And to be given a role and some responsibility and allow her to rise to the occasion.
Yeah.
So we shall see.
Well, we know that there's an open position.
Yeah, we know that there's
very
a chairmanship
high
of
up.
the ADP that is
that's
going wanting right now. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wouldn't that be quite the shocker?
Yeah. Well, I think there's really only one person who can answer that question. That's Deja Fox. So hey, Deja, come talk to us. We want to hear about what you're doing
That's
next.
right. We want to hear what you're going to do next.
So, does anybody want to talk about any of the also rans in the race?
To be honest, I didn't even look them up.
Yeah.
There were only two I did research on before my vote. So.
Yeah, well, there were three main candidates, but there were two more. And one was Patrick Harris Jr., who had this idea about cap the cap. And yeah, I'll be interested to see if anybody picks that up and runs with it. I thought it was a little bit legally naive. He's not a lawyer, so he doesn't know really how to craft legislation, let alone a constitutional amendment. So I don't really see that getting off the ground too much. But Jose Malvido, who has spent his life here in this district, like the Grijalvas, organizing at the grassroots level. I mean, the man has an amazing life history. I mean, the things he's been through in his life in labor organizing, in indigenous rights, in environmental work is just astounding. I think he is by far the biggest undiscovered gem from this race. I think if people look up Jose Malvido, they will be very impressed by his message and his life experience. There's far too little far too few, I suppose, Jose Malvitos in Democratic politics here in Arizona. And I think we could all learn a thing or two from Jose. So I hope we see a lot more of Jose.
You make this guy out. I'm curious now why he lost then.
Because he had no name recognition and no budget.
So we're now admitting that name recognition was an important factor.
Absolutely, name recognition is a big factor, especially with low information voters. You know, I mean, most people don't even know. Most people can't name their congressman, let alone their state
And
representative.
for primaries, it's turnout, right? It's
Yeah.
all turnout. Can you get them to send back their mail-in ballot?
Yeah. So I mean, the biggest hope that somebody like Jose Malvito would have would be like a big viral moment that just like blew up, you know, in the news. Something amazing happens to him or with him that, you know, he gets that name recognition. And it just didn't happen, but, you know,
Well, I'll
nonetheless,
tell you what he needs to
he's
do.
a fantastic guy.
He needs to start a TikTok account.
Maybe. Maybe.
And this again, it brings back to my point that there was all these different individuals. All of them are worthy, whether it's Jose, whether it's Deja Fox, but the Democratic Party does not have this internal structure to give them the position to all run in a more fair election.
Yeah, well,
Well,
to be
it was
fair,
a fair election.
the
but-
party itself doesn't have a lot of resources these days. I mean, as you were alluding to with the whole controversy with the ADP chairman, I mean, he had raised $13,000 in the last 6 months. That's not enough to run a state party.
That's pathetic.
Yeah,
That's a terrible outcome.
it's truly pathetic. And,
Wow.
you know, quite frankly, I was amazed that we were able to vote him out on the first try. I thought we were probably going to have 2 or 3 of those state committee member meetings in order to actually eject him. But
The entire state committee raised $13,000.
Yeah, there were 702 state committee people.
yeah, I mean, well, no, he did in call time, the ADP chair, and that's kind of the ADP chair's role is to raise money. We raised additional money with, you know, digital programs. It's basically, you know, passive income. You know, it's just we hire a digital ad agency and they put out Facebook ads and so forth, and we get some digital income as a result of that. So I think around $100,000 altogether was raised, but the chairman was responsible for very, very little of that, and that was one of the big reasons why there was a huge revolt among the state committee members. Not only because he wasn't raising any money, but because, you know, he was alienating everyone around him, which is proven by the fact that 90% of SCMs voted to remove him.
Wow.
90%. That just surprised the hell out of me, quite frankly.
I wasn't expecting to get to this topic.
No, well, you know.
But
hey.
for our audience, let's
That's inside
explain
baseball.
a term. He mentioned call time. That is where you do just sit on the phone and just call donors. It is an important act to bring money in because this isn't just bringing money into individuals. It is about bringing money into values and investing in those values. So that way we can eventually see things such as better public transportation, better public infrastructure, better water rights. That is why it's so important for any candidate or any state or local elected official to be engaging in call time.
I mean, yeah, money is the mother's milk of politics. You know, you can't get the message out in a free society with a free press like ours unless you have the money to buy in. You know, that's just the way it is. You know, we could do things about that. We could change that. We could, you know, make it so that, you know, it was cheaper and subsidized for candidates to be able to access.
Deja
the
Fox
public ways.
just raised $1 million
Yeah.
in 100 days, so she did 10 times better than the entire Arizona Democratic Party.
Yeah.
Well, but you know, there is a way to make it cheaper to run for office, and that's the whole running clean.
I think the right answer, guys, is so Deja Fox should be in charge of the fundraising for the entire Democratic Party. I don't think you should be giving her, oh, let's find a position for her. No, she's in charge now.
Yeah.
Like that's, I mean, period, right? It's like we need help. We sat for a quarter and raised 100,000. You did this for 100 days by yourself as a 25-year-old and raised $1 million. You are better than us. You are the master. Please, can we pay you to make a difference for us?
Yeah,
I think that's like it needs to be a full attitude shift. We've got these folks that you're voting out of office because they so don't know what they're doing. She clearly knows something about that. You know, like now is the time. Like plug her in. Empower her, you know, bring her in, knock down her door. You know what I mean? You guys have somewhere, the channels to plug her into. Let's just be honest that she's way better at the party than
She
they are.
certainly has the credibility and ability to write her own check in Arizona politics right now.
I
It's just
don't
a matter
know
of
if that's
her
true,
deciding
though.
what her priorities
I don't
are.
think that's true. I think the truth is that she's not going to be plugged in directly, because I think folks look at her and experience and don't overlook that experience. They look at it and they're not willing to plug her in and give her the reins. I think that's just been my experience as a younger person. We will see what happens. I'm very curious to see if that's what happens.
So
I would like that to happen. But
Andrew, are you challenging her to run for chair then?
no, I'm challenging the Arizona Democratic Party to give her a significant position of power and to admit we don't know what we're doing.
I mean,
Like
that
to
would
say we
depend
don't know
on
we don't know how to fundraise.
that would depend on who ends up becoming the chair, and that would also depend on the board as
Yeah.
well. Especially
I
if
think-
it's a paid
I
position.
think when you see a highly skilled person and you see that they're way better at you, way better than you have to plug them in.
Yeah.
Not just treat them like, okay, we need to give her some years of experience now. It's like, no, plug her in, give her the reins, because
and that would what I'm
Well,
saying
that's how you
though
do it.
is
I
if
get
you're
I get your
given-
point, Andrew, and it's a well-made one and a passionate one, but the fact that the Arizona Democratic Party, as the party, has not been doing well in fundraising is not down to a lot of people in this state not knowing how to raise funds. We know how to raise funds. ADLCC knows how to raise funds. Last cycle they raised $15 million.
then why did Deja beat you?
because of
She did
Why did
not.
she raise?
AD
Why did she outraise you?
Because we had an incompetent chair for the past 7 months.
Okay.
That's why. And because he
All right.
broke his relationship with our statewide electeds, our senators, our representatives, our statewide electeds, our governor, our secretary of state, our attorney general. He broke that relationship. He failed in the basic
Okay.
duty of the Democratic chair, and that's to bring all factions together at the table to work together. And he signally failed in that. That's why the fundraising fell off. I tell you this now, Kelly knows how to raise money. Gallego knows how to raise money. Hobbs knows how to raise money. Adrian Fuentes knows how to raise money. I mean, we've all seen it. When he gets on a stage, he can make it rain $50,000 in 5 minutes.
A meeting of the state committee members,
Yeah.
and you raised $50,000
Yeah.
in donations in about 15 minutes.
Yeah, it's not that these people don't know what they're doing. It's that they weren't cooperating with the state party, and that's.
I
that's
still
why-
think, I mean, just with the list that she has now and the connections that Deja Fox has now and the progress that she was able to make by herself, not being plugged in, if you then take her and say, we want to learn from you. We want to give you a full-time position, a full-time paid position. Please, will you teach us? I think if she is genuinely approached that way, I think both sides will learn a lot. I think she'll learn the organizing experience she didn't have, and I think the folks in power who have a lot to learn about the new technological time that we're in will learn a lot from her, and I think it will be. I think everyone will win because we're all on the same side here. Like we're trying to get the same stuff done.
I'm not too familiar with all the positions that are paid within the state party, but really the only two that I could imagine that would fit that bill would either be the chair or the executive director. I don't think there's
To
really.
be in charge of fundraising?
I don't
the
think.
fundraising director is actually a paid position.
Okay, so. But that's
But there's
currently
already
filled.
one of those.
Yeah, so unless the board or maybe the
And
the
that's
state
why,
can-
and Larry's talk last week, I mean, you gave the case in point example after example. Having the folks in there that need to step down, where it's no longer, I mean, I don't know the person who's in that position. I'm just saying, the folks we just saw a great example of that, right? We just saw President Biden not willing to step down, even though everyone on his team knew it was time. I think when someone else is better than you, yes, you're going to lose the income from that. Yes, you're going to lose the position. But what's your game here? Is our game give people jobs, or is our game win some elections and have the best party that we can? I think we have to choose. It's not about, well, some people are going to lose their jobs. That's the way that it is. You got to step down when you're no longer the most effective anymore.
Well, I think
that's
the
the
larger point
hardest
that you're
thing.
making
It is.
is right. Is that this young lady has proven herself, and she's written a big check, and she can cash it however she wants, and that's the question: is what's next for her?
And my question is, can she
Come and
cash
talk
it?
to
I
us,
don't know
Deja. We
if
want to
they-
hear from you.
Yeah, we'll see if they give her that opportunity. I hope so.
We'll see.
I mean, we're state committee members. At least I don't know. Are you?
I challenge them now to give her a position of authority
But would
where
you
she
vote
can get
for her
things
if she
done.
ran for chair?
Me?
Yeah.
Yeah, in a minute.
And you, Larry?
I'd like to see her get a little bit more seasoned. I want her to have an important role, but I think the chair needs to be somebody who has experience. I mean, we've got to repair the Democratic Party. We've got to regain the confidence of the donors. So, we need somebody who can speak to the donors and convince them that the party is worth supporting financially. And having someone like Deja Fox as part of the organization is a great way to do that.
For me, if Deja ran, it would remind me of one of the Pima Dem Udall dinners. I think it was 24. I believe they had from South Carolina or one of the Carolinas.
Yes.
I can't remember her age. Maybe she was 25, but she was the chair of their state party in that state.
Yeah.
And so it would be similar to that. And if whichever Carolina could pull it off, then I think Deja could potentially pull it off as well. And so I would be open to her running as chair.
That's a very good point. Anderson Clayton is who you're talking about. Yeah. And yeah, she's awesome. Yeah, no two ways about it. She really stirred up the Udall dinner. She's a great speaker and a great fundraiser and a great motivator, and she was a great party chair. Still is. And I think she's still an incumbent.